Hi, I'm back again. If this was a regular YouTube channel, I would probably be doing a very interesting vlog about how the past few weeks have gone. But it's not a vlog, and I know you guys don't want to be bored. Actually, it's not boring, but I know you guys will be interested in hearing about how interesting, in quotes, my week has been. Anyways, sorry for disappearing again. I am very close to promising that this will never happen, but things happen. What I can promise is that I am going to try even harder to make sure that this will happen again. So I hope my apologies are accepted. I'm sorry. Okay, so for the last two that are supposed to be Thursday and Friday, it was both of them the same concept, and that was you rushed skirts basically. So I'm going to show you how I do mine. There are a gazillion ways to do it. One of them is the slash and spread method, but this is what I work with. So what I do, let me get scissors, where are you? Okay, so what I do basically, if I'm cutting, I'm going to start by showing you how I cut a regular pencil skirt. So let's say I take the length of the skirt first. Now if this is a dress, so the skirt, by skirt I mean the bottom part of the dress. So I take the length of the skirt first, I measure the waist, usually by dividing the waist into 4 and adding the sewing allowance. Then I take what is called the hip length. Is it showing? Okay. And at that hip length point, that is where I take my hip line, my hip measurement rather. Expected, so this will be hip measurement divided by 4 plus sewing allowance. And then I pencil it. There's another way I pencil, but that's discussion for another day. What I typically do for just what I call soft penciling, not too tight, very comfortable to work in. What I do is just take 1 inch, whatever I have here, I'll subtract 1 inch from it, and I do this. That's what I do. So there's another way. Maybe one of these days I'll do a video on how to make like super pencil body hugging skirts. But for today, this is what we're doing. So I am going to show you what I'll do with this. Now you can do this with pattern paper or lining. Yeah, pattern paper or lining. You can do any of the two. I've gotten so used to doing this. Notch the hip. Okay, so this is our basic skirt per se. And now if we're doing the slash and spread method, I'll be ripping through this right now. I'm cutting through to get the lines, but honestly that's a lot of work. I am productively lazy. So I devised another way to do it. And what I do, remember how we took the hip length? Those are the two lengths we have here, the hip length and the skirt length. Those are the two important lengths we have. So I would typically ruch my skirts at 2 times the length. So that means if this length, for example, is, let's say 30, that means the fabric I'm doing the gathers on is going to be 60 in length. So I'm going to be looking for length 60 to squeeze up. You could go lower if you don't want too many gathers. You could go higher if you want more gathers. But for today, let's just say times 2 of the length. So times 2 of the length is going to be 60. Now let's see, using this as a sample. Why is everything so dusty? What's going on? Okay, so let's say this is the length we have now. and I want 2 times of this. So this is 2 times. You don't really have to mark it out like this. You can just measure your 60 for example, but I just want to have an idea of what 2 times of this would be. So now we have the skirt length at 2 times. Now the hip length, remember our hip length, that's the distance from the waist to the hip, to the fullest part of the hip. That's what hip length is. So that hip length now is also going to be times 2. So we are coming to our actual fabric. We're going to measure out our waist the way we did, waist divided by 4 plus allowance. But now our hip length is going to be times 2 of this. So this is what we had initially. I can't measure because this is not realistic. It's not a human sized pattern, so I can't really measure. That's why I'm doing this. If not, what you should be doing, if your hip length was 10, for example, that's from waist to hip is 10, you can do 20. That's if you are going with my method of multiplying everything by 2 and gathering it back. That's like squeezing it back to the actual length. So if this was 10, so we are going for 2 times of this. So this is our new hip length. Now instead of using the hip length we had before, we are going to 2 times of the hip length. So that's where we're going to take our hip now. So this is where we will now measure. So along this line now, that I will now measure my hip. Are we together? Are we together? So this is where we now have our new hip length. Hip length is here. So this is what I'll be marking out now. Please forget that this is bigger. Or should I? Okay, let me actually do it the way it is so that we don't get confused, because I was actually freestyling with the hip, but let me not do that because it's the same hip you're going to use. You're not adding anything to the actual hip. It's still going to be hip divided by 4 plus 1. The only difference now is that the hip length is different. We doubled it so that by the time we squeeze it back, it comes back to here. So like I was saying, you take your hip measurement. So I want it to be the same hip as this so that we have a realistic looking dummy or pattern. So waist is still the same. Let me confirm. Waist is still the same. Yep. Hip is still the same. And then I'm going like this. Still have the same length here. So I'm going to mark that too. So the widths are still the same. Your waist is still the same. Hip is still the same. The bottom is still the same. The only difference now is that I doubled the 2 lengths, the 2 important lengths. I doubled the skirt length and I doubled the hip length. So this is our pattern paper and we're pretending that this is our actual fabric. So there. So if I wanted, it doesn't have to be 2 times of the length, but the thing now is whatever you're doing to the skirt length, you're also doing to the hip length. So let's say you don't want the gathers to be too much, you don't want an extremely rushed skirt. What you'll be doing now is just to add to the length. So if you're adding 10 to the full length, you're adding 10 to the hip length basically. So I'm going to notch, yeah, okay, because we need this to work. I'm going to notch this. So this is where our hip now is now. By the time we squeeze, we are still going to have the correct waist, the correct hip, the correct pencil, but now we have it squeezed and fitted. That's what you achieve by cutting this thing like this. So let me take this out of the frame. So this is our pattern paper, and this, okay, I'm going out of the frame. I'll have me out of the frame, not sure. This is our pattern paper, and this is the fabric, basically. So what the next thing you'll be using here for is to actually measure. So you're going to take your tape and measure like this along the curve to the bottom. Whatever you get, that is what you're going to use, either with an elastic band. I usually prefer to use an elastic band to draw the gathers, to hold them in place. But you could also just use a strip of fabric. It could be bias, it could be a strip of the actual fabric, but that is what you'll be using to hold the gathers in place. So that strip of fabric or that elastic should be the same length as from here. Remember I said you take your tape like this. Whatever you get, that's the length you need. And then when you do that, be sure to mark where the hip is on the fabric. So let's do our strip of fabric. Let me try. I can fully explain what I'm saying. Let's say that this is our strip of fabric. I hope this will be enough. So this is our strip of fabric. So we're going to do this. This could be elastic, this could be the fabric itself, just a strip of it. It could also be cotton bias. Any of them can serve as your guide. Now what we're going to do is to mark where the hip is on your strip of fabric or your elastic, anyone. So when you want to put this together, when you want to draw your gathers now, if it was an elastic band, all you have to do is pin here to here, pin this point to this point, and then pin this to this, and then gather everything on this. So you're gathering on your seam line. That is, assuming you are sewing it now with your, assuming let's say 1 inch sewing allowance, if you are sewing it. So you're going to place either your strip of fabric or your elastic. You place it here, you pin this one here, open now, you pin this one here, so you know that you're getting your exact length for hip, and then you pin the last one to the end, and then you gather inside that space. You can still divide it again so that you have more even gathers, but you get the gist, right? If you don't, comment below if you want me to explain further. So this is how it works with the front. Now if you want the same brushed look at the back, you repeat the same process. The only difference now is that at the zip line, you're going to have to hold it down with stitches. That is same process, exactly what I described for you. That's what you're doing at the back as well. The only difference now is your zip is going to be running through gathers. So you have to, let me just give you a sample. Let's just say this is the back. Let's say this is the back. I'm adding, oh sorry, okay. Notice that I'm not putting any dots. The reason why I am not putting any dots is because dots are placed to create fitting, to give fitting to your clothing, and you're about to have a rushed dress, meaning that the area in between the fabric, that is after gathering both sides of the skirts, the area in between is going to have more than enough allowance to take the shape of your bum or your hip. So you do not really need to put a dart at the back of this dress, except if you are not going to gather the back, except if your back, the back of the skirt is going to be a regular back. So back to what I was explaining. Same process we used for this is the same process we used for this. The only difference is that you're going to take this one already created and create the back. So we are creating the back. Hold on. Okay. So I don't just explain in the air. Let me take this out. So you're going to be using the same thing, just exactly same way. Note that, like I said, that's to create fitting. You already have a gathered / rushed fabric, which means it will have provision, to make provision to take the shape of your bum or your hip. So you do not really need a dart at the back if you are going to put these gathers, except if you're not doing the gathers, then you need to put your dart at the back. But my pattern for skirts generally does not include a dart at the front at all. I only put darts at the back. Reason being, there's no butt in front of you. Your bum is at the back, that's where you need darts. Creating a dart at the front will only create an annoying bulge that you might not like. The only time you should do that is if maybe you're trying to add volume to a customer's hips. Maybe they don't really have much going on down there and you want to create the illusion of fuller hips or fuller thighs. You can add a dart to the front. Or you have clients who have curved thighs, like their thighs are curved in front as well as by the side. Then you will need a dart in the front. Yeah. That's that about that. That's that about that. Wow. Oh, okay. So this is it. The only difference now, like I said, you're going to have this measurement. This is the back pattern for our actual skirt. So same thing, you're taking this length, you're taking a strip of fabric or elastic to make sure you have this exact length. And then you can mark, you can use your, just like we used this on the other side, you can also use it to mark where your zip starts, so that you have like a midpoint. This is what I mean. Let's assume, jeez. Let's assume you're starting from here, like your zip is going to start from somewhere here. So you can mark the zip point on this one as a reference point, and you have the bottom as well. So just like we did for the sides, you now take that part that you've measured, multiply it by 2. So if this was where it was, for example, if this is where your zip point is, multiply it by 2. So now your zip point is now here. Your zip point is no longer where it was. The zip point now comes lower. So that means that you are going to have to gather on the zip line. Now that gather is going to be held by a stitch. So that means you have it gathered maybe on a piece of paper, run it, and then tear out the piece of paper, so that that stitch now holds your gathers in place on both sides. Already from the zip line to this point is going to be, let's say this is where we marked our zip now, so it's going to be from this to this. So you're going to use that one to gather. This is paper, so I can't really demonstrate the gathering, but I think you get what I mean. You're going to use this to gather from here to here. To explain again, for the zip line, you'll still get a strip of fabric that is going to do the gathering at the center of the back. Now that line that you've measured and that is equal, you still mark, you use your zip points. I'm just assuming this is where your zip is going to be. So this zip point is going to be a reference. And then you are going to use that strip of fabric to gather this one. So from here to here, you cut here out. I think I should just actually demonstrate it. This is the zip point, so cutting it out. This is the part we've measured double of. Remember, if you only do this if you're doing double. If you're not doing as much as double, and say maybe you're adding 10 inches to the bottom, you add 10 inches to this as well. So you take this, create it in paper or in gum stay, and then use it. I think I should take this out. Let's take everything else out. You place it at the beginning of the skirt with paper, not the actual pattern, not the actual fabric rather, and then you place it and you gather all this on it. Now when you gather this, because it's paper, you can tear off the paper or tear off the gum stay, and you are left with stitches that are holding your gathers in place on both sides. This thing I showed you here, you see it on this other side. And then with your fabric or elastic or bias, you're going to draw gathers together. This time on your seam line, you're going to draw gathers that will bring this together. So that's how to do it if you're going to do it for the back. For the side, you're doing this together. You'll be doing this together. So it's the same process I explained earlier that you're going to do for the sides. It's that simple. For the one that had extensions on the sides, they have ruffles. So just the way you create ruffles, create a length that is maybe 2 times the length of the side, and then gather it into your seam line. That's it basically. If you still have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to explain further. Bye.